We'll now do an example of creating our own class and then doing some stuff with it. So we've been talking about this employee class and how we can add members to it and doing stuff with properties. So let's actually do an example of putting all that together. So we're going to create a separate project. So here's Visual Studio. I recommend that you follow along with this. So we can click on New Project. And we're still going to go to Visual Basic, Windows Forms Application. And I'm going to call this Employee Class Application. And we'll hit Enter. And it'll take a second to open the project. Here we go. So there's our project. And what we need to do is we'll first create the definition of our class, and then we will create at least one object of the class. So remember, the way we do this is we would go to Project up here, and then we need to go to Add Class. And then we're just going to pick Class, and then we give it a name. Here I'm going to call this Employee, and we're going to still keep the .vb, and then we'll click on Add. And we see that we now have a new code view for employee.vb, and we even see it over here in our Solution Explorer that we have employee.vb here as well. So now we can just add all the attributes and the operations for this class. Very similar to what you would do like in Java or even in C++. So we need to create a couple of private variables. So we're going to do private, and we'll do the ones we were talking about before. So we'll do underscore str name as string. So remember, the underscore we normally use for private data members. You don't have to do this, but it's pretty common, and we will be creating properties for all these as well. So then we'll do one for the hours. So we'll do private underscore dbl hours as double. Whoops, that's better. And then private underscore dbl pay rate as double. All right. So now we'll go ahead and create a property for each of these variables. So remember, the purpose of the property is that we can handle get and set operations. That way we can access a particular variable, or we can modify a variable. Could we create methods that do all this? Yes, but we have the property. Let's take advantage of it. And then we can actually use the property in all of our other things instead of having to use the variables directly. So to create a property, we do public and then property, and then we'll give it a name. So we'll do pay rate first, since we did that as an example before. So let's just go ahead and type up that example. So we have pay rate as double. And here, notice it didn't actually give us end property. So let's go ahead and add that in here. I'm actually surprised it didn't do that. Yeah, and it's going to say here that we haven't used pay rate yet. Yes, must provide both a get and a set. We will do that. Do not worry, Visual Studio. We will add a get and a set. So let's put in get. And notice that it does fill in the rest of the stuff for us. So it gives us the end get. It even gives us the set. So all that's taken care of. So now we just got to add in what's supposed to happen when we do the get and set operations. So for get, we're just simply going to return the value of underscore dbl pay rate. And then for our set, well, we're going to check a couple things. So if the value is greater than 0, then we'll set it to that value. Otherwise, we'll make it 0. So we'll say if value is greater than 0, then we'll say that underscore dbl pay rate is going to be that value. And if that's not true, we'll need an else. Then we're just going to say, well, then it will just, if I can type, pay rate is going to be 0. And that's it. That takes care of our get and set operations for pay rate. All right. Well, we need to do this for the other variables as well. So we'll go ahead and do the name. So let's do public property, and then we'll do name as string and property. And then we need to put in a get, and then it fills in the rest for us. So for our name, for the get operation, we're going to return the value of our variable, so underscore str name. And then for our set, all we're going to do here is just set the variable to the value. So we're going to do underscore str name equals value. We're not going to worry about doing any checks for this. So that should take care of our name property. And now we need to handle our hours property. And we're going to find that this is going to be the same as our pay rate. So we're just going to return the hours for our get, and then for our set, as long as the hours is greater than 0, it will set it to that value. Otherwise, it's going to be 0. So let's just go ahead and type that up. So public property hours as double, and property, and then get. All right, so for get, we're going to return the value of the hours, so dbl hours. And then for our set, we're going to say if value is greater than 0, then we're going to say that dbl hours is going to be the value. Otherwise, we're going to say dbl hours is 0. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we now have properties for all 3 of our instance variables. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to add constructors to our class, because we have to have a way to initialize our instance variables. So we'll create a default constructor and then another one with parameters. So we'll go ahead and do that down here. So we'll do the default constructor first. So remember, the way we do this is we'll say public and then sub and then new. So remember, unlike other programming languages, we don't put in the name of the class. We put in the word new, and it's a Visual Basic thing, so we just go with it. But now what we're going to do is we're going to initialize our pay rate to 0. We'll initialize our hours to 0, and then we'll initialize our name to the empty string. Seems pretty simple, right? Okay. So then we need to do another constructor, but now we're going to do it for with parameters. So we'll do public sub new. So now we need to pass some parameters. So we'll do by val. We'll say ename as string, and then a comma, by val e pay rate as double, and then by val e whoops, there you go, e hours as double. And then what we'll do here is just do all of our initializations. So we're going to say that name is ename, and then pay rate is e-pay rate, and then hours is e-hours. All right, so that's taken care of. And then we can add other stuff in here as well. We'll add one more procedure. We'll add a function specifically that will compute the salary for a person. So if we're given the hours and we're given the pay rate, we can compute the salary. So we'll create a function for that. Because remember, a function returns something and a sub does not. So think of a sub like a void method or a void function. So we're going to do public function, and we're going to call this salary. And we don't need any parameters for this because we already have the values that we need. And all we're going to do here is just return hours times pay rate. And that should take care of the main parts of the class. So we have our instance variables, we have properties for all 3 of the instance variables, we have some constructors, and then we have a function that gives us the salary. All right, so there's our class. So now we need to create at least a couple objects for the class. So let's go back to the form here, and I'm just going to double click on here to get the code view of our form. And what we can do here is create some objects of the class. So we can do dim, and I'm going to call this emp object 1 as employee. And we can do this because the employee class is defined in this project. And notice I didn't have to import anything. We don't have to do that in this case. And we're going to initialize this to new employee. So this will actually create an object of the class. And I'm going to use the default constructor here, because what I can do now is say emp object 1 dot, And notice that I have the properties given. So we can directly access the properties because we set them to public. So I can say .name equals, let's see here, let's say John. Okay, so we got John. And then we can set the hours. So we can say, if I can type emp object1 dot hours equals 40, and emp object1 dot pay rate is maybe 9.5, and then we can do a message box that would display the salary. So we can do emp object1 dot salary. So that's going to display the salary for this employee. Okay, let's do one more. So we'll do dim emp object2 as employee equals new employee, and now we'll use the constructor with parameters. So I gotta remember what was the order. The order was name, pay rate, and hours. Okay, so let's say here I'm going to do Billy as my name, and then pay rate. Oh yeah, there's the reminder. Thank you. So pay rate, let's say is $12.25, and then the hours is 40. Okay, and then we can do message box, and then emp object2 dot salary, and I'll give you the salary for Billy. All right, this looks pretty good. We'll save that real quick, and let's just go ahead and run this and see what happens, and cross our fingers and hope that we didn't screw up somewhere. So we'll click here. All right, so 380. So it's not formatted as a number, but that's okay. Or it's not formatted as currency, but that's perfectly fine. But if we see here that would be $380, we would have to do some formatting, but that's okay. So that works for employee 1. Employee 2 would be $490. That makes sense. I would think that's right. And then, of course, nothing's going to be displayed here, and that's perfectly fine. But sure enough, we see here that we can create as many objects of the employee class as we want. We did 2 here, but we can create as many. We can do arrays of objects. We can do lists of employee objects, and we can do all sorts of neat things here. So hopefully you got something out of this, and thank you for watching.